Hey guys, it's Leslie Watt here, physiotherapist, yoga instructor, founder of Physiologic Yoga Method, and now the leader of this meditation program that we're doing. This is Sandor.
Hi.
Musician, guitarist, Reiki practitioner, meditator.
Multi-talented.
And media guy. So you might be interested in this 10-day course that we're putting on. And this is just the preliminary information that's going to help you get through it a little bit easier. So if you've never meditated or aren't familiar with how to sit or even what meditation is, we're going to go through a little bit of that briefly. And that's going to help launch you into the actual learning in the program. So we have a couple seating options here. Sandor is on a bolster, a yoga bolster. It's rectangular. You can see that. And then I'm actually on what's called a camel cushion. It's like the hump of a camel. So this one's a bit higher. It's meant for meditating. And you were looking at me sitting on it cross-legged. Sandor is also sitting cross-legged here. And he is our quintessential beginner practitioner because he's a little bit stiff. His hips aren't overly flexible. He's a marathon runner. So we're going to use him as the protocol for all of you out there. So I just wanted to show you one option you could do here, Sandor. Is this how you sit normally when you meditate?
Yep.
Okay. Do you sometimes sit in a chair?
Sometimes in a chair. Sometimes I will use a couple of these, whatever I can find that's comfortable.
Okay, so we're going to go through a couple options, and then I would like you to pick the one that's most comfortable for you. So if you're sitting cross-legged on the floor, it's always a good idea to eventually try to sit on the floor, just because I think a lot of people need that in their lives. So even if we're gaining in age, a lot of my clients as a physiotherapist want to be able to play with their grandchildren on the floor, want to be able to get down on the floor to do yoga or whatever. So work towards getting to the floor, but if you're not comfortable, we'll give you a couple options in the chair as well. So one thing you can do to see if you're able to get a little more comfortable with sitting on the floor is doing what you're doing, sitting up on a cushion. I always try to sit on something on the floor, not right on the floor itself. And if your knees are hovering like this, you can grab a couple yoga blocks and prop your legs up on each side. So that just takes the tension out of the system a little bit and allows your body to relax and do it a little more. Is that a little better?
Much better.
Okay, good. Another option is what they call thunderbolt sitting. So instead of sitting on the cushion facing forward, you rotate the cushion or the bolster, and your shins go beside it. So you can see I'm a little bit higher now. I'm a little taller than Sandor even, because it's lifting me a little higher, and that just allows a little more space in the knees. It allows my pelvis to shift back a little bit, my spine to sit upright a little bit. So that's another really good option if you're not comfortable cross-legged on the floor. And then we have a chair back here. So I'm going to get you to just sit in the chair, right back so your back is supported. It's never a bad thing. We're working on kind of trying to take the body's sensation out of the equation so that we can work a little bit more with our mind. So you want to feel super comfortable. Would you say that's as or more comfortable as on the floor?
I think it's more comfortable for me.
Okay, so that would be what I would currently choose for you. What I like about a chair too is that you can then cross your legs in the chair if you want to do that like briefly, right? And you can even use the armrests as knee rests if they reach. So you kind of have a hybrid option there if you're in a chair. So don't be shy about sitting in a chair. Doesn't mean you're a bad meditator. And then if, like me, you're quite short and your feet don't touch the floor when you're in the chair, you want your feet on something, so you can grab some books, some yoga blocks, and just make sure that your feet are supported if you do choose to sit in a chair. Good. You want to join me back down here? Because we're not meditating, we're going to chat. So those are our seating options. In yoga, the asana portion, or the exercise or stretching part of yoga, which we're mostly familiar with, was actually developed thousands of years ago so that people could meditate easier. It opens your body to sit. So we're just going to be doing a very gentle stretch for our spine before we actually sit in meditation in this program. But if you have time before you meditate, doing a little 10 to 15 minute practice to stretch your hips out would be good, because it's going to make you a little more flexible for the sitting. Another thing to mention when you're sitting is you can choose where your hands go. So mine just naturally sit on my lap. I'm sure you put your hands there because
it helps me hold my legs.
Helps hold his legs from ricocheting apart. The mention of that you should be sitting in a chair. Yes, thank you for joining me down here. You can choose to put your hands down or up. Sometimes people say putting them down is a more grounding feeling. So if you're feeling anxious or flighty or busy and you're trying to settle, placing them down might be a good idea. Placing them up is a lighter feeling, like you're holding something, a little more present. It's kind of uplifting. So you can experiment with that. You might see sometimes people, what Sandor is actually doing naturally here is just touching his thumb to his fingertips. It's called a mudra, which is just a hand gesture. And that little pressure between the thumb and fingertips, it has been said to just increase our awareness, feeling of presence, so you can take that mudra. Some people like to sit with their palms together and the thumb tips touching. That's another classic sort of Zen meditation hand gesture. Sometimes people like to put their hands on their heart. You can put them in namaste. You can drop them down beside you. So choose consciously where you put your hands, just making sure that it feels comfortable. And then always feel that you can move and change and shift your position during meditation. You don't have to stay here or commit to it rigidly if it's not working for you halfway through. So always make your body's comfort a priority. A couple of the meditations we're going to do in the program, you'll have the opportunity to lie down. Some of the more relaxing meditations that we do, like a body scan, it's just nicer to lie down and maybe put something, a scarf over your eyes, have your head supported, but we'll go through that during. You can always lie down for any of the meditations. Sometimes that makes people feel like they're going to fall asleep, which is okay if you fall asleep during any of these meditations. That's totally fine. That's just a signal that your body probably needs more sleep in general. So no guilt there, but sometimes it just increases the risk if you're lying down. You can stand, you can lean against a wall, anything that makes you comfortable. I just wanted to show you the classic options here. And the other thing to note is that you really can't do damage. I mean, if you're in pain and your legs are going numb and you're ignoring that, you probably want to shift. Very little chance that you're going to do permanent damage, but that's the most risky thing that you can do in meditation. You can't really do it wrong. So as long as you're just abiding by the sensations of your body, physically you can't do it wrong, and mentally you definitely can't do it wrong. There's really no risks in trying to meditate. It might feel frustrating at first or forever, but no danger. There's no danger involved. Is that what you found?
So far, yeah.
So far. Okay, good. What has been your experience in meditation? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
I started about a year ago meditating regularly. I found that it's helped me focus. I have struggles with ADHD. And the meditation becoming part of my morning routine has really helped me to stay focused, to be able to function a little more regularly.
I've noticed it too. Like I was there pre and post your meditation practice, and one of my meditation teachers, when he was teaching us at my yoga training, said if you're not going to meditate for yourself, at least meditate for your loved ones, because they will notice a difference. And I totally did. Like it was kind of night and day once you started daily meditation practice. I noticed that it was easier for you to focus and just be more present, and I think it helped a lot of aspects of your life.
Yeah, it certainly has.
Yeah. My experience has been, I realized more recently, like I think I grew up teaching myself concentration meditation just because I really liked to study when I was young. I spent a lot of time alone in my room as an only child. I liked to read and play alone, and I was very able to focus all my life, very early on in life, and then into university. It was very easy for me to focus, say like study for 8 hours in a row without breaking my focus, and that, looking back, was actually just a form of concentration meditation. I was able to focus on one thing with purpose without needing to divert my attention. So kind of the opposite of ADHD in a way, is hyper-focus. But for that reason, concentration meditation for me, I don't need to practice it just because it's developed in me very naturally. There are other types of meditation that we're going to go through, and each one has a different scientific benefit. So a lot of meditation programs and courses, they like to teach one style and then practice that over and over and over and over. And that's sort of like the style that you commit to for life or for years as a discipline. I found that dipping or just knowing a little bit about a lot of styles of meditation has helped me a lot, because then you can pick and choose depending on what's happening in your life or in the world, in your environment. And if you know what certain styles do, you can choose those to match what you'd like to get out of your current situation. So meditation at its basic is just being able to choose where your attention goes. And more recently, we were just traveling in Vietnam, and this is when it kind of hit me. We were in a very, very tall cable car. And it was like a 20-25 minute ride to the tallest peak in Indochina called Fancy Pants, but it's Fancy Pan Mountain. And it was windy, and I'm not afraid of heights, but that day I was, and I noticed that if I looked around at my environment, I was terrified. I started feeling sick. And if I could choose where I put my focus, the ride actually became sort of tolerable and even pleasant and exciting.
You didn't notice me shaking the car.
So on the way up, it was terrifying. I could feel my anxiety coming. My stomach was churning. I was getting cold sweats. I was very glad to get off. And after hiking up the mountain and back down, I knew we were going to have to come back down in the same cable car. There was no way else to get down. And I was reminded of my patients as a physio who say that they get that kind of fear if they have to have an MRI, which is a common test to have. And I love small spaces, and I can't imagine not wanting to be in them. I like being confined, but for a lot of people, that's very claustrophobic, and it's very anxiety-provoking, especially if it has to do with a medical test. And I remember them telling me that if they could calm their breath and use the meditation techniques that we worked with in the MRI machine, they were able to calm themselves enough to get through it. So I thought, well, if they can do that in an MRI machine, I can do that in a cable car. And I chose to focus on a vent on the floor in the cable car rather than on my surroundings. And it was enough just to get me down perfectly while you talked to me about things, purposeful distraction.
The ride down was very different.
Yeah, it was very different. So we can tell in each other when we're using these meditation techniques. So those are sort of the bookends of my experience. And then in between, I've had other experiences. I did a 5-day silent Vipassana or mindfulness retreat in California at Spirit Rock. I've done the mindfulness-based stress reduction course. It's an 8-week program, very classic. I've taken the transcendental meditation course as a student, and just in yoga in general, the breathing techniques, I use those weekly at least, if not nightly, to kind of get me to sleep, to help anxiety, to help revive me. A lot of body scans and just awareness. So all of these things I've been practicing in little different doses all of my life. So I decided to put this together and bring it to you. Any questions so far?
Will there be music?
Oh, yes! Music meditation. That's actually a newer thing, like sound healing. But Sandor here is going to be offering some guitar. Is that right?
I will be offering some, yes.
Okay. So there will be some music to enhance what's happening, and sometimes the lack of music or silence to compare and contrast what's happening. So that'll come in and out.
I find that I meditate with music more often than not, but I'm working in silent meditation more frequently, just as a counterbalance. I find that it gives me a different experience.
Yeah, a lot of people tell me I prefer silence, but I've learned more recently too that that's not the more common preference. Music has been, I've been told, like a bridge into silence. It's that thing between the chaos of the world and this like hyper overload sensitization that we've been going under into silence. So music can kind of bridge that gap between the craziness of the world and the silence that might feel overwhelming to a lot of people. So we're going to use that to bridge the gap as we go. And then now I'm going to just end with a little education piece on meditation, and to prove to you that why I'm a meditation and yoga teacher and a physiotherapist and not an artist. So this is going to be the worst drawing you've ever seen. But I've been told that it's worthwhile because it's useful in understanding the different styles of meditation. Got my notes here. Sandra knows it's coming, so he's laughing. Okay.
This is my favorite part.
So there's a lot of styles of meditation. Each day in the 10-day program that we're going to go through, we'll touch on a different style, and I'll be supporting it with the science and the studies that have gone behind it. But I just wanted to give you kind of like an overview of how meditation can be divided into different subjects and groups and styles. Okay? So I like to think of it as like a home base. This is a house, by the way. It's going to be a house. This is our home base. Okay? Meditation is a way of using the house as sort of like a beacon to know where our mind is at. So we're going to put ourselves in this house. This is crossed legs. These are our hands and our legs. And this is us being happy, meditating. Pretty good so far, I think. So this is our home base where our attention's going to go. The classic one that a lot of us are familiar with, and we don't even know that it's called concentration meditation, but is concentration meditation. So you can think of like staring at a candle light, right? The flicker of a candle. It's a classic focal point. Or breath, to focus on your breath is another thing to focus on, to concentrate on. So you can use things to look at. You can choose to focus on sounds. This is an ear. So it doesn't matter what the subject is. It matters what your intention with that subject is. So in concentration meditation, you can pick a subject, a sight, a light, a sound, your breath, a sensation, something that's consistent in your environment. And your goal will be to focus only on that thing. And when your mind wanders to other things, classic one is like your grocery list. This is going to be a carrot, right? So maybe you're thinking about like, what are you going to have for supper? Oh my gosh, you have to buy an apple pear on the way home. Maybe you're thinking about dessert, a donut. When your mind wanders in concentration meditation, the point is to bring it back to whatever subject you've decided to bring it back to that home base. Mindfulness meditation allows us to notice when our mind wanders and then to stay there for a little while. So, I'm thinking about food. Okay, just before I go back to the home base, I'm going to stay here and think, why is that? Am I hungry? Okay, I am hungry. And then wait, I'm actually hungry for a donut. And is there any other feelings associated with that? So naming whatever it is that we're thinking about, hungry, maybe guilty, maybe caring. Maybe you're going to buy some vegetables for your kids on the way home. So, okay, caring, preparing, hungry. And then once you identify that, to come back to the home base. So that's more mindfulness meditation, which has also been called vipassana. Other things you might think about, common ones are like pain, like sore back, right? Our body's going to give us sensations to notice. You might just have other thoughts. It's a thought bubble. So you're going to notice what you're thinking, what's in your thought bubble, and that's going to happen for sure. Like you're not going to be able to stay in the home base for very long at all. That's just the way the mind is. It's going to wander. So if you're not doing concentration meditation and you're not doing mindfulness meditation, another form of meditation that we're going to talk about, I call it transcendental type meditation. So transcendental meditation, or TM, is actually a branded name of a type of meditation that I'm not qualified to teach. I've never taken the teacher training, but the type of meditation that they're talking about, transcendental type meditation, we can talk about. And that's when we actually do a practice that allows us to leave the home base. Is that still on? Okay. Allows us to surpass what's happening in our mind, in our thoughts, in our feelings even, and kind of transcend out of the paradigm altogether. And sometimes it only happens for like a second, not even a split second. But that moment of transcending whatever's happening around us can be very soothing if there's a lot of anxiety and chaos and worry. And I know you and I both kind of like that feeling. We prefer that type of meditation a lot. So I prefer that because it feels good to me, but it doesn't mean that these other types I don't need as well, because it's also good for me to learn what my thoughts are and be able to name my feelings. Also good for us to be able to concentrate when we need to. That was the cable car ride. Yeah, and then there's going to be other ones. We're going to do body scans, which is kind of like a concentration meditation. We're going to talk a little bit about law of attraction. We're going to do some breath work, which is also another type of concentration meditation. But those are the three big ones, three sort of famous styles that we're going to launch off of. Any questions?
Can you do more than one at a time?
That's a really good question. I would say you can do more than one at a time in a certain session. Like if you had 20 minutes, you could do 10 minutes of one type, 10 minutes of another, or 1 minute of one type and 1 minute of another. But if you're doing two at a time, it might mean that you're distracted. And the point is to pick one thing that you're trying to get the benefits out of and do that for a certain amount of time. Yeah, it's a good question. So the short answer is no, you can't do two at a time. Okay. Good. Okay, I think that's good for now. I won't take up any more of your time until the course or the program starts. And if you have any questions, just send me a message. Thank you.